Me and my good friend Mike used to spend a lot of time together during the summer. We were both home from college, and our families often went on vacations, leaving us behind. That summer, my parents had planned a trip to Europe, and Mike's family was visiting relatives in another state. We were thrilled because it meant we would have the house to ourselves for a whole week. We had grand plans for our time alone. We imagined late-night movie marathons, ordering pizza whenever we wanted, and just enjoying the freedom of being independent. Our excitement grew as the day approached, and finally, the day arrived when our families left. The first couple of days were everything we had hoped for. We stayed up late, watched our favorite movies, and indulged in junk food. But on the third day, something unexpected happened. Mike received a call from his parents. They had forgotten an important document they needed for their trip, and asked him if he could find it in their bedroom and overnight it to them. Mike agreed, and I offered to help him search the house. We started in his parents' bedroom, rummaging through drawers and closets, looking for the document. As we searched, Mike's excitement turned to frustration. The document was nowhere to be found. We decided to widen our search and check the rest of the house. Hours passed, and we combed through every room, every nook and cranny. The sun began to set, and panic started to creep in. Where could this document be? We were about to give up when we noticed a locked door in the basement. We had never seen it before, and curiosity got the better of us. We managed to force the lock open and stepped into a dimly lit room. The air was heavy with dust, and a musty smell filled our nostrils. Shelves lined the walls, filled with old books, trinkets, and dusty photographs. In the corner, we spotted a metal filing cabinet. With a glimmer of hope, we opened the cabinet and started sifting through the files. There, buried among stacks of papers, we found the missing document. We let out a sigh of relief and quickly prepared it for shipping. We thought our adventure was over, but little did we know, it was only beginning. As we turned to leave the basement, we heard a creaking sound coming from the stairs. Our hearts raced as we realized someone else was in the house. Mike whispered that we should hide and call the police. We found a small storage room adjacent to the basement and barricaded ourselves inside. Time stood still as we listened to the footsteps above us. The intruder was moving slowly, searching room by room. Fear gripped us, and we huddled together in the darkness. Minutes felt like hours as we waited for help to arrive. Suddenly, we heard the door to the storage room being forced open. The intruder had found us. We cowered in the corner, our breaths shallow, our bodies trembling. But to our surprise, it was Mike's older brother, who had decided to pay us a surprise visit. Relief flooded over us as we realized we were safe. Mike's brother explained that he wanted to see how we were doing, but seeing the basement door open and hearing noises, he assumed someone had broken in. We laughed nervously, grateful that it was just a misunderstanding. That night, we stayed up late, talking and recounting the events of the evening. The adrenaline that had coursed through our veins was now replaced by a sense of gratitude and an even deeper bond between us. We realized that sometimes, even in the safety of our own home, unexpected events can test our courage and friendship. I had never been much of an outdoorsy person, but during winter break, my parents decided to take a vacation to a tropical destination. Unfortunately, I caught a bad case of the flu and couldn't join them. Instead, my parents arranged for me to stay with my uncle and aunt in their spacious house in the countryside. They assured me that it would be a quiet and peaceful time, but little did we know that fate had something else in store for me. My Uncle Ben and aunt were a fun and energetic couple. They had a big family, but all their children had already grown up and moved out, leaving them with an empty nest. They were thrilled to have me over and planned various activities to keep me entertained during my stay. One evening, Ben and I were playing a lively game of Monopoly in the cozy living room. Outside, snowflakes fell gracefully, blanketing the surrounding landscape in a soft white layer. We were thoroughly engrossed in the game when suddenly the phone rang, shattering the tranquility of the moment. Ben paused the game and answered the call, his expression growing increasingly concerned. I could hear him murmuring short responses, his voice tense. After a brief conversation, he hung up the phone and turned to me, a worried look etched on his face. "Something urgent has come up, and we need to leave immediately," Ben said, his voice filled with a mix of urgency and concern. "Your aunt and I were supposed to attend a family emergency, and the roads are too treacherous to drive in this weather. We've called a neighbor who will come to pick us up, but they won't be able to make it for at least an hour. We can't leave you alone here, and unfortunately, there's no one else we can call on such short notice." I could sense the gravity of the situation and the worry in Ben's eyes. We both knew that waiting for an hour in the house was not an option. The neighbor's house was too far to walk to, and with the snowfall intensifying, it would be risky to venture outside. We needed a solution. An idea struck me. "Why don't we set up a home security system to protect the house while you're away?" I suggested. Ben's eyes lit up as he considered the idea. With his engineering background, he knew he had the necessary skills to put together a makeshift security system using the various gadgets and tools he had in his workshop. We sprang into action, searching the house for materials we could repurpose. We found motion sensors, cameras, and even an old intercom system. Ben quickly got to work, connecting wires, mounting cameras in strategic locations, and configuring the motion sensors to trigger alarms. It was an impromptu home security system that we hoped would provide a semblance of protection. As we worked, the wind howled outside, rattling the windows and making the house creak. The storm had intensified, making the atmosphere eerie and foreboding. Our imaginations began to run wild, and we couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the makeshift security system was in place. Ben tested each component to ensure they were functioning correctly. Satisfied with the results, we armed the system and huddled together in the living room, the game of Monopoly forgotten. The hours passed slowly, each minute filled with anticipation and anxiety. Every creaking floorboard or gust of wind made us jump, our nerves on edge. The storm raged outside, creating an impenetrable curtain of snow, obscuring our view of the outside world. Suddenly, the motion sensor alarm blared, startling both of us. We froze in our tracks, our hearts pounding in our chests. The camera feed displayed a figure outside, obscured by the falling snow. The intercom crackled to life, and a distorted voice echoed through the house. "Come out, little one," the voice whispered menacingly. "I know you're all alone." Fear gripped us, but we refused to let it paralyze us. Ben, his face determined, grabbed a baseball bat from the nearby coat rack, while I searched for anything we could use as a makeshift weapon. We were ready to defend ourselves against this intruder. With cautious steps, we moved through the house, following the surveillance camera's feed on a small handheld monitor. The figure continued to taunt us through the intercom, their voice growing more sinister with each word. As we reached the front door, a chilling realization struck us. The security system had worked, but it had inadvertently locked us inside the house. It was designed to prevent intruders from entering, but now it was keeping us trapped. Panic surged through us, and we desperately searched for a way to disable the system. Just as despair threatened to engulf us, Ben spotted a control panel hidden behind a painting in the hallway. We quickly accessed it and managed to disable the security system, feeling a wave of relief wash over us. Without wasting another moment, we cautiously opened the front door. The freezing wind bit at our faces as we stepped out onto the porch, peering into the darkness. The figure was nowhere in sight, but fresh footprints in the snow indicated that someone had been there. Summoning our courage, we decided to venture out, determined to find answers and ensure our safety. With the baseball bat clutched tightly in Ben's hand, we followed the footprints, leaving the safety of the house behind. As we trudged through the deep snow, the storm continued to rage around us. The wind howled like a banshee, obscuring our senses and making it difficult to track the intruder. But we pressed on, each step fueled by a mix of fear and determination. After what felt like an eternity, we stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin hidden among the trees. The footprints led directly to its front door. We exchanged a wary glance, knowing that we had to confront the person who had invaded our sanctuary. With trembling hands, Ben pushed the cabin door open, revealing a dimly lit interior. The room was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of our heavy breathing. We cautiously stepped inside, ready for whatever awaited us. To our astonishment, we discovered the cabin empty, devoid of any signs of life. It was clear that someone had been there recently, but they had vanished without a trace. Confusion mingled with our fear, leaving us puzzled and on edge. Suddenly, a noise from the corner of the room caught our attention. We turned our gaze towards an old, creaking rocking chair. It swayed back and forth, as if moved by an unseen force. And then, a chilling whisper filled the cabin. "Get out. Get out while you still can," the voice murmured, filled with a mix of desperation and warning. Without hesitation, we followed the voice's advice, rushing out of the cabin and back into the biting cold. As we retreated through the snow, we could feel eyes watching us, a presence lurking in the shadows. The figure had eluded us once again, leaving us with more questions than answers. We returned to the safety of the house, our hearts pounding, and locked all the doors and windows. Exhausted and shaken, we huddled together, seeking comfort and solace in each other's presence. The following day, we contacted the local authorities and shared our harrowing experience. They conducted a thorough investigation, scouring the area for any clues that could lead to the identity of the mysterious intruder. However, despite their best efforts, they couldn't find any substantial evidence. Days turned into weeks, and the incident became the talk of the town. Neighbors were on high alert, double-checking their locks and reporting any suspicious activity. The media picked up the story, further fueling the community's fear. Ben and I couldn't shake off the lingering sense of unease. We became even more vigilant, taking extra precautions to secure the house and protect ourselves. It seemed like we were in our own real-life version of Home Alone. Only the threat was far more sinister than a couple of bumbling burglars. Months passed, and slowly, the community's fear began to fade. Life returned to a semblance of normalcy, although the memory of that terrifying night haunted us. We couldn't help but wonder who that intruder was and why they had targeted us. Last year, in a small suburban town, an unexpected turn of events led to a thrilling and suspenseful adventure for me. It was the holiday season, and my large family was preparing for a trip to visit our relatives. With all the hustle and bustle, I accidentally got left behind in the chaos of our bustling home. As I woke up that fateful morning, the house was eerily quiet. I searched every room, but my family was nowhere to be found. Panic set in, and I soon realized the terrible truth: I had been left home alone. The initial excitement of having the house to myself quickly transformed into a mix of fear and determination. While my family was away, the solitude turned my house into an uncharted territory, filled with endless possibilities. But as darkness fell, the once familiar home became an intimidating labyrinth. It seemed to come alive with strange creaks and eerie shadows, feeding my imagination with tales of lurking burglars and prowling creatures. Late in the evening, while watching a suspenseful movie, my senses heightened. Every sound seemed amplified, making my heart race. A sudden knock on the door shattered the silence, sending shivers down my spine. Trembling, I cautiously approached the door, peeking through the peephole. Relief washed over me as I recognized my neighbor, Mr. Marley, an elderly man with a mysterious past. Curiosity overwhelmed my fear, and I hesitantly opened the door to Mr. Marley's concerned gaze. He explained that he had noticed my family leaving and saw me home alone. To my surprise, he offered to stay with me until they returned, knowing the fear and loneliness I must be experiencing. Reluctantly, I accepted his offer, grateful for the companionship and the sense of safety he provided. As the night wore on, Mr. Marley shared stories about the neighborhood, tales of peculiar occurrences, and the rumors of a notorious burglar targeting the area during the holiday season. These stories filled my imagination with a mixture of fascination and dread. Just as we were settling in for the night, we heard a suspicious noise from the attic. My heart raced, and I couldn't ignore the creeping feeling that we were not alone. Mr. Marley, though older, demonstrated remarkable courage as we cautiously investigated the source of the sound. We armed ourselves with makeshift weapons, ready to confront any potential threat. Ascending the stairs to the attic, the atmosphere grew tense with each step. The attic door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit space filled with forgotten relics and dusty furniture. The sound that had drawn us here was now eerily absent. Suddenly, a crash resounded from the far corner of the attic, accompanied by a low, chilling growl. Fear pulsed through our veins as we exchanged a glance, determined to face whatever lay ahead. We pressed forward, following the noise. With bated breath, we turned a corner and came face to face with the unexpected. A mischievous raccoon had made its way into the attic, causing all the commotion. Relief washed over us as the raccoon scurried away, leaving us with nothing but a mess and a newfound sense of camaraderie. Despite the false alarm, our hearts were still racing, the adrenaline pumping through our bodies. We laughed at the absurdity of the situation, relieved that it was merely a raccoon and not the feared burglar. As the night drew to a close, I realized that being home alone wasn't as terrifying as I had imagined. I had overcome my fears and found unexpected strength within myself. The presence of Mr. Marley had been a reassuring presence, reminding me that courage can be found in the most unlikely of places. When my family finally returned home, they were filled with relief and worry, having realized their oversight. They showered me with hugs and apologies, grateful that I was safe and sound. I regaled them with tales of my thrilling adventures and the unexpected friendship I had formed with Mr. Marley. Over the following days, I couldn't help but reflect on the lessons I had learned during my time alone. I discovered the importance of courage, resilience, and the power of human connection. The experience had taught me to trust my instincts, face my fears head-on, and appreciate the strength and kindness of those around me.